Oh my, would you look at that? United States of America versus Donald J. Trump. 4 more felony counts. I think it's like 78 now for this orange douchebag who is responsible for, I've said from like almost the beginning, just a fire hose of felonies. I mean, it's like every single thing that this guy has ever done in his life is a crime. It's like all he knows how to do. Could have had a great life. Could have just taken the money from his old man and just, but no. And then how many morons had to put him into office to where eventually hundreds of thousands of Americans died prematurely because he downplayed a deadly pandemic. Now he should have already been imprisoned for that. But it's quite something that finally, it looks like something may actually stick here. I guess it just took the first indictment and then they'll just keep coming and coming because they're expecting in Georgia an indictment there for interference with the elections. So I know there's going to be the edgelords saying, "Oh, Mark, I don't understand how you could be an anarchist and about voting." It's not rigged at the ballot, because if it was, we wouldn't be seeing this. If it was rigged at the ballot, they wouldn't be worrying about gerrymandering. Gerrymandering wouldn't even be a thing because it was all just rigged. Larry Krasner, again, I'll throw Larry Krasner into the because that's your black swan right there. The fact that Donald Trump got elected in the first place says that, the election not rigged. They rig it before that. They rig it where Hillary will get the nomination over someone like Bernie Sanders. That's where the rigging is taking place. It's not ballot dumps and other and the stupid things like the Italian server or some stupid things like that. No, and this guy, despite all the the terrible things, my gosh, over hundreds of thousands of people went and died prematurely because this animal downplayed a deadly pandemic. And before I get into the indictment, this is your guy? Really? This is your guy? This is the guy that just nonchalantly admits to being a serial sexual assaulter, grabbing women by the crotch, moving on married women like a bitch. That's what he said. And one of the biggest tells that you're getting duped, that any half idiot should be able to get. The guy claims to be a billionaire. A billionaire is thrown around, and billions of dollars is thrown around, and maybe it's just lost its meaning. It's like you use woke so many times, it just loses its meaning. But if he honestly had billions of dollars, which, given what his father left him, he should have been a billionaire. If he's as rich as he says, why in the world is he always fundraising? Why? He is begging for money. That's all he does is beg for money. It was reported something like just this year alone, since January, he has spent over $40 million on legal fees. $40 million is just a mind-boggling amount of money for 6 months of legal work. But it is absolutely nothing to someone who's supposed to be a billionaire. So the biggest tell here, why people look down, so many of us look down on Trump supporters, is the fact that you cannot see that you're being grifted. You cannot see that this guy is a con man. Billionaires, someone like Elon Musk, as disgusting and despicable a human being as he is, as billionaires, actual billionaires tend to be, don't spend their time begging people for money. They have more than enough money to do whatever the hell they want, like overpaying for Twitter. So the fact that this animal has been fundraising since 2015, that's all you need to know. That if those are the only facts, and this is not fake news, this is not me being biased because, oh, you just hate him, you're never Trumper. Just looking at the facts. The man's supposed to be a billionaire by his own admission, and his sycophants always a self-made billionaire. Self-made. $400 million from his father. Self-made. Took over the family business, but he's self-made. How stupid can people who support this guy be? It's this right here. People still giving him money. Never stopping to ask yourself. The guy's like, says he's like the most successful businessman in world history. Nobody has more money than him. Why is he always begging for money? Because he's a crook. He is as dishonest as the day is long. He is a damn crook. And they got the goods. And the thing is with the facts, see, and I'll address what may come in. Oh, okay, you can challenge jurisdiction like you, Mark Stevens. No, because he's being charged for crimes he committed, allegedly, while president. So he was part of the government. He had an oath of office. It's on video. You can watch it. You tell how what a con man and how petty and petulant, how childish this man is. That after the inauguration, his big gloat was the size of the audience. Who gives a rat? Who cares? Who the hell contemplates these things? Yeah, I know there'll be losers that will look at the size of my audience and try to use that. It's like, yeah, as that's some kind of a metric for the value in what I'm saying. This is glorious to read. And I have a link in the description for the indictment. And what's interesting, too, it's 45 pages long. So he was the 45th president. So I don't know if that was just Donald Trump doesn't read, so it's not like he would get it. The defendant, Donald Trump, was the 45th president of the United States and a candidate for re-election in 2020. The defendant lost the 2020 presidential election. He did say if he lost to as bad a candidate as Joe Biden, I'll agree with him on that. That Joe Biden was terrible. Should have been Bernie Sanders. He said that you'd never see him again if he lost to such a bad candidate. But again, most of the things he says is a lie. Despite having lost, the defendant, that's gotta really get him. Maybe he's going to have a story that grown men coming up to him, because people could just walk up to a former president, that you could just walk up to them. It's not like Jimmy Carter. He's, grown men who have never cried in their life, crying, just weeping, sir. It's so unfair that they're calling you defendant. He was determined to remain in power. And we know that that's true because he was on TV every day. And he was tweeting. So for more than 2 months following Election Day of November 3rd, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome-determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendants knew they were false. But the defendant repeatedly and widely disseminated them anyway, to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. So here's the thing. Here's another tell. If the election in 2020 was rigged, that the Democrats are so powerful that they can undermine an election with Donald Trump as president, rigged. And then you've got sycophants like Kerry Lake saying it's all rigged. It's all rigged. The Democrats are so corrupt, they're rigging all the elections. Why in the world would he run in 2024 if it's rigged? Oh, that's right. If I lose, it's rigged. If I win, it's not. And yet he still has millions of people willing to give him money and support him. I can't get that. I don't understand. The defendant has a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election, even to claim falsely that there have been outcome determinative fraud during the election and that he had won. He is also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means, such as by seeking recounts and audits of the popular vote in states or filing lawsuits challenging ballots and procedures. Indeed, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election results. His efforts to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. There was over 60. He lost every single one. There were audits, there were recounts, and in some cases, it turned out that they had miscounted by a few hundred, and Biden had even more that he won by. And then you had here in Arizona, you had the ninjas, or whatever the stupid company was called, the IT ninjas or something like that. They did an audit right here in Phoenix for millions of dollars, and it turned out, yeah, there was no widespread fraud. Shortly, and you may point, well, the federal courts are all rigged too. He's the president. It's not the same thing when you and I, the little people, when we go to court. Yeah, we know it's stacked against us. We know. I get that. He's the president. He was the president. So you can't. And these were judges he personally appointed. A lot of the judges he personally appointed. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. There are a lot of times, like I think it was Michigan, they wanted them to stop counting the votes at midnight. In doing so, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government, in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 371. He openly admitted to doing this. He talked about it. He still talks about it, just like he still thinks that the boxes at his home, Mar-a-Lago, he still thinks in the bathroom and one, he still thinks that they're there, that they're his, even though he said that they were planted by the FBI. It's almost impossible to keep track of all the lies he tells about, because they're so convoluted, and he lies like a fire hose. Just like with the documents, the classified documents. He said that they were his. He said he declassified them. Then he said that the FBI planted them. The only thing more breathtaking than the scope of the crimes that this animal has committed is the depth of the stupidity of this man. A conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified. A conspiracy against the right to vote. Each of these conspiracies was built on the widespread mistrust the defendant was creating through pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud. And I don't have time, I won't be able to get to all this, but it's been testified to that even it's why Bill Burr, who was one of the worst sycophants in modern history for president, he resigned less than 2 months. He resigned, I think it was December of 2020, abruptly, because of this. They just wanted the attorney general to say that there was fraud and that they would let the Republican congressman do the rest. And he wouldn't do it, he resigned. He targeted a bedrock function of the United States federal government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. This is insane. From on or about November 4th, this all played out. We watched this. This is on video. It's because this is why he can't keep, one of the reasons he can't keep attorneys. He doesn't pay them, and he doesn't keep his mouth shut. The man has diarrhea of the mouth. He cannot stop talking, and he just keeps implicating himself. He's just too mind-numbingly stupid. I mean, the fact that he didn't take a few $100 million and just friggin' disappear and enjoy life, that is enough to tell you there's something wrong. It's like someone like Elon Musk. With all that money, you to just disappear and enjoy your life with your family. Do whatever, you could do literally anything that you want. They're sick. The defendant did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators known and unknown to the grand jury to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the potential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. We know that's what he did. He bragged about it. He's on tape. That's why he's going to be indicted in Georgia. He's on tape. He's recorded doing this. Republican, with the hearings with the January 6th committee last year, you could see all the witnesses, which were predominantly from his administration, predominantly, if not almost exclusively, Republicans. The purpose of the conspiracy was to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud to obstruct the federal government function by which those results are collected, counted, and certified. And you can't say that the feds don't bend over backwards for this guy, because they do. And they did for years. It's just these crimes were so much. Even the Department of Justice just couldn't ignore it. I mean, it was just too much. I guess it's just like with the IRS. They're not going to go after one of their own for abuse and fraud unless they embezzle from the company. So here, this was an attack against Congress. So as long as you don't attack your own, so you can have this animal. You can have him downplay a deadly pandemic, knowing how deadly it is, knowing how many people it's killing. And you don't charge him with depraved indifference. No, you let that go. But he attacks his own. That's where it comes in. It's just like the rich and the privileged don't get held accountable unless they attack the rich and the privileged. And they name the co-conspirator. Well, they don't name, but they list the co-conspirators, but it's easy to see who they are. This is, obviously Rudy Giuliani. And a lot of these, they're attorneys. These are attorneys and Justice Department officials. So this is crazy, the level of detail that they have in here. And again, you could just use YouTube and you can see witnesses testifying last year. You can see the defendant himself admitting to these things. The defendant and co-conspirators organized fraudulent slates of electors in 7 targeted states. That's just proven by documents. You can prove that they weren't real electors, and they're being charged in Michigan, a bunch of them. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, attempting to mimic the procedures that the legitimate electors were supposed to follow under the Constitution and other federal state laws. We know that the defendant co-conspirators then caused these fraudulent electors to transmit their false certificates to the vice president. We know that that's true because he talked about the vice president, he in his speech before the January 6th riots. He talked about him, he tweeted about Mike Pence not being, strong enough. Yeah, the defendant co-conspirators attempted to enlist the vice president to use his ceremonial role in the January 6th certification proceeding to fraudulently alter the election results. All admitted. All admitted. First, using nominally false claims of election fraud, the defendant and co-conspirators attempted to convince the vice president to use the defendant's fraudulent electors, reject legitimate electoral votes, or send legitimate electoral votes to state legislatures for review rather than counting them. And here, wow, the defendant, his co-conspirators, and their agents made nominally false claims that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the 2020 presidential election. These prolific lies, because again, it's all broadcast, about election fraud included dozens of specific claims that there had been substantial fraud in certain states, such as that large numbers of dead, non-resident, non-citizen, or otherwise ineligible voters had cast ballots, or that voting machines had changed votes for the defendant to votes for Biden. And then you've got the Sidney Powell crap, which she's probably one of the unnamed lawyers, talking about Argentina and Hugo Chavez being involved. These claims were false. The defendants knew that they were false. In fact, the defendant was notified repeatedly his claims were untrue, which includes the disgraceful sycophant Bill Barr. Bill Barr told him, the guy who falsely spun the Mueller report. So you know he's not a never-Trumper. He's a dyed-in-the-wool scumbag Republican, and had his head so far up, Trump's rectum. It was, and he was saying it's not true. So this is a staggering amount of facts that we already know, that can already be proven, and it will be proven very easily in court. So the defendant insinuated more than 10,000 dead voters had voted in Georgia just 4 days earlier. Georgia's Secretary of State, a Republican, who said that even after all this, he would still vote for Trump, had explained to the defendant that this was false. All these Republican governors and secretaries of state, all telling them it's false. So I would recommend that. I've only touched. Just scratch the surface here. I would recommend definitely getting into the meat of this, because this is a rock solid indictment. There's the only thing I could figure is he gets a jury, and there is someone dumb enough or paid enough to hang the jury. It's the only way. I mean, when you that is the arrogance that comes with privilege, that he got away with so many crimes for so long. What are they going to do? They're going to charge. What are they going to do? They're going to impeach me twice. What are they going to do? They're not going to indict a former president. This is your guy who would stop the invasion in Ukraine by making 2 phone calls, telling Zelensky, "Yeah, you got to settle," and then calling Putin, "You got to settle." That he's on video doing that. I know my Trump impression isn't very good, but and people just keep sending money. They just keep sending money. There is no end of the stupidity of the American populace that to send a so-called billionaire and send him money. I don't know. I'm going to spend a few minutes on the comments for what it is worth. So enough about that. I'm starting to get a little nauseous looking at this picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up my, let's trigger some of the homophobes and and the Trump fans if they're still watching. Homophobe, Trump fan, kind of same thing. So I will go now. Let's see. I will cut that. I will see what we got. Another video that will be 100 views. Probably, Mike. But don't worry. There's not going to be too many live streams left. I probably have one more in the tank. So I know you spend the time to log in so that you can give the count. And I know I'm talking about something that's going to get lost in millions and millions of clickbait type of videos because of what's going on. So I get that. Michael, friend, are you still yammering about the COVID scam? Well, Michael, you are a moron if you don't believe that that was real. So, Bafangul to you and anybody else who thinks it was a scam, you're brain dead. 2,000 meals, give me a break. I think all your detractors picking you here because you don't dunk on Biden or I did. I could spend. I have. I've talked about. I've even spoken about it. But the difference is with this orange douchebag. He told everybody what kind of person he was. He wasn't a regular politician just making money by with stocks and lobbyists. This guy actually caused the premature death of hundreds of thousands of people, Americans. So, yeah. But you only have an obsession. It's not an obsession. It just happens to be that this is unprecedented. So, it's not an obsession. He's started over 500 companies. He also can't run a charity in New York because he was stealing from it. He has bankrupted casinos. What's wrong with you? The guy bankrupted casinos. In the 90s, he lost more money than any American. He has the record for losing the most amount of money. How many businesses had Trump University? Come on. That's a business? Trump steaks? What's wrong with you people? Zoo Brooks, anyone who praises a politician like you just did, Michael Friend, doesn't really deserve and understand anarchy. Well, I don't think, I'm not praising him for creating 500 companies. So you're trying to make a case for the guy that he's some kind of businessman. He bankrupted casinos. I'm from Long Island. I grew up. And, you know, he was always on something, Howard Stern or, okay. Everyone knew what a scumbag he was. Everybody knew because of all the lawsuits, he doesn't pay his vendors. The guy has been a piece of garbage his entire life. Who gives a damn about how many? So what if he started 5 million companies? It doesn't change the fact that you've got someone claiming to be a billionaire who's crying for money. And people too stupid to see through the grift. It's a correction. That is something not everyone can do. He's not as unsuccessful as Mark is claiming. He's very successful at grifting and conning people out of their money. He is one of the most successful at that. As far as starting successful businesses, his father's responsible for that. This anarchist can't stop talking about a politician, but that's not directed at me. He's denigrating a statist. Wow, it's amazing. You may. All right, this is just fighting between two people. So. Chris, I'm not a Republican, but being anti-Trump in 2023 is kind of gay. Okay, I got a good laugh out of that one. Chris, being any politician is statism. Well, yeah. But we do have black swans that are politicians like Larry Krasner. So... Michael Friend, he started 500 companies, not his father. The thing is, his father was the successful one. His father was the one that built that company. His father was the one that gave him millions of dollars. His father was the one that was actually successful. Yes, he was a piece of garbage. He was a racist piece of garbage, and the Trumps had many lawsuits for violating housing laws, for not renting to people who were not white. So, but there's no question that if you're looking at who the successful businessman was, it's not Donald Trump. It is his father. Donald Trump is a successful grifter. He is very good at conning people out of their money. He's very good at taking money from, keeping money from vendors. My gosh, man, he didn't even pay Rudy Giuliani. He's got a history, not from me. So I'm gotta end the stream here. I would recommend I have the link in the description. Check out the indictment. Because if anything, you learn how to write a proper complaint. I mean, they really nailed that one tight. I mean, I've read the other ones and they're good. This is rock solid. This is one of those things where the lawyers are like, you got to cut your losses here, dude. Just plead guilty, and they probably won't give you any time. But it's in the description. So I do have to, again, mention the live stream is definitely coming to a close very soon. I will probably do the last live stream on Monday. I will continue making videos, but I just can't be tied to a schedule. It's just not worth it. So I will be back Monday at 7 o'clock Arizona time. So, hey, till then, salud.